Hi Dhruv, how are you?
I'm good. Am I supposed to first name address you?
No, I think we're okay. I am excited about this interview. And so thank you for
Likewise.
agreeing to participate. Um, and so, as you know, this call is being recorded. But are you ready to get started?
Yeah, sounds good. Let's do this.
So I have a lot of questions, and so some of it might feel a little bit like a rapid fire round. Some of these are light, it might not take a lot of thought. Some of them might take more thought, in which case you're welcome to pause and think about it. If you want to skip any questions, we can do that. Feel free to let me know. Um, and so, yeah, but in general, when in doubt, if you can err on the side of being vulnerable, transparent, authentic, that would be good.
Sure.
All right. So the first question is, what were you doing just before this call?
I was taking a nap. I was taking a nap because I'm struggling with a little bit of low back pain, and so I needed to stretch and then just lie down and recover. Thankfully, we're working from home, so there's flexibility in the schedule that lets me do that.
Makes sense. Makes sense. What is your daily routine like?
My daily routine varies, but a typical day is I wake up around 6:15. My gym has a class at 7 a.m., which I get up and get ready for. 7 to 8, I'm in the gym. I'm usually back by 8:30. Get ready for meetings. If I'm teaching, there'll either be a class. If I'm not teaching, there are usually meetings. I try to not have meetings on Wednesdays because I try to block Wednesdays for reading papers, writing, anything that I want to catch up on. Most other days I'll have, for example, Fridays are my one-on-ones with my students. Usually done by 5, 5:36. Usually are my last meetings. Right around then, I'm usually hungry, so I'll, you and I will do dinner together, uh, and then and then I might catch up. I might watch some TV or catch up on more work after dinner, and that's basically it. That's a typical day.
Sounds good. What is your favorite part of your day?
I think I have several favorite parts of my day. If I'm physically fit and not in pain, then just exercise is my favorite part of the day. Um, I There are some days where I'm talking to my students or other collaborators, and just the intellectual back and forth. That's pretty enjoyable. Um, and then, there are days where I'm glad that the day's over. So the favorite part is just being done. Uh, so it varies.
Yeah. What is the least favorite part of your day?
I don't know. I don't know if I have a least favorite. I mean, it exists. It mathematically exists, but I can't pinpoint it. Um, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. What one chore do you dislike the most, and why is that?
Oh God. I hate the dishes. Just yeah, like there are a number of these cyclical chores where it's the life cycle of life, right? Dishes come out, they get dirty, dishes go back in. It's just over and over again. Clothes get washed, they get dirty, you put them in again. It's just that cycle feels so meaningless and a metaphor for life in a way. I hate chores where it's in a way I like them because they're mindless and you can be thinking about other things when you do them. But the meaninglessness of them I find very disappointing.
Um, do you struggle with procrastination?
Yes. to say more.
No, you froze for a bit, so I wasn't sure if you were just going to stop there or say more. Um, but yeah. Do you struggle with time management?
uh, I am the significant other of someone who has written a blog on time management. But yes, I struggle with time management. I am like, I, yeah, you've tried over the years to fix my time management problems, but yes, I do struggle with time management. I struggle with actually sticking to the to-dos that are listed on my calendar. I struggle with you know not getting distracted with other tasks that may be on my plate. I struggle with my email inbox getting converted into a to-do list, which means you don't have control over your to-do list. It means that new tasks get added to your to-do list without your conscious choice. So yeah, I struggle with a lot of those things.
Do you set an alarm in the morning?
Yeah, I do every day, 6:10 typically.
How often do you hit the snooze button?
Typically never. Um, I might be up and be reading emails in the bed for like 5 minutes, but yeah, no, typically if I'm there are days where I will get up and decide that the body isn't feeling up for it. So I can only decide in the morning. Like I can't tell at night. I wake up and yeah, no, the soreness hasn't gone, so I'm not going. But typically, no, there's no snoozing.
If I asked your friends, what is Dhruv like? What are three adjectives they'd use?
Depends on the friends. Um,
How about the closest friends?
three adjectives. Contrarian or anti-authority. Uh, I hope someone will say fun or funny. That's important to me. Uh, and I don't know, someone who knows a random bunch of trivia. Yeah, yeah, they might say that.
Hmm. And how much of that is true? Is anything exaggerated? Is anything missing?
I'm not that funny. Yeah, so that part's exaggerated. Uh, what's missing? Uh, I guess what's missing are all the like these are all positive adjectives, right? So what's missing are the negative adjectives, which friends wouldn't say.
Um, are you happy with the number of close friends you have?
I haven't given that thought. Didn't give a thought to the number. Um, I'd say I don't spend a lot of time thinking about that, and I don't really care about that question much of the number of friends. Uh, what I'm not particularly happy with is there were people who were close friends who are no longer close friends because just didn't keep in touch. Life drifted us apart. That I'm not happy with.
What is one thing you are worse at than people around you?
Um, I mean, at this point, professionally, I guess programming. I haven't coded professionally in a couple of years, a number of years at this point. The last time I led end-to-end experiments for a paper was like 2014, so 6 years at this point. Um, so that I'm, on average worse than the people who are around me. Um, Yeah.
Yeah. What is your single biggest strength?
Um, I'd say I'm able to uh, forming world models. Um, I am able to combine pieces of information from various places, and I'm able to, or at least what feels like to me, put together. I'm able to put them together in what feels like to me a coherent narrative, and a coherent world model. Um, I'm sometimes able to make them make put that world model to use by making concrete, verifiable predictions about the future, and those predictions have been accurate. But a lot of times, uh, the world model is explanatory in terms of it explains behavior in the past, but not directly actionable, which is problematic. But yeah, I think just that.
What is a recurring moral conflict?
A recurring moral, well, I don't know if it raises, I think this is a moral conflict. This is called the tragedy of the commons. Um, it's this phenomena where um, uh, individual rational actors maximizing individual or taking rational decisions from an individual perspective can lead to group behavior that is suboptimal for the group. Um, and that is problematic because it leaves you in bad places. Either the way, so the only options then are you do nothing, in which case some resource or outcome is going to be bad. Like this usually comes up in the context of climate change. Every single actor may be making locally optimal decisions. You have countries that are not developed who want to be developed, and therefore have to spend resources, pollute their environment to get to the developed stage. You have to lift people out of poverty. But if everybody does that, then we will end up with a planet that is uninhabitable. Um, and the way around that is to either let that happen, in which case the group ends up with an outcome which is bad ultimately, or to establish some sort of centralized authority that comes in and says, you cannot do this. Yes, that may be locally optimal for you, but it is not globally optimal for everybody else. And therefore, certain individuals have to suffer. And that's typically where you have to come in and define, well, who gets to suffer. And the history of the world suggests that the agents or the actors or the individuals who suffer are the ones who've had a late start. If you've had an early start on the board, you suffer less. So yeah, there is no, I don't know of a good solution to these problems, and this happens at various scales.
Is there a specific instance where you distinctly recall feeling privileged?
Yeah, yeah. Um, there's one specific instance, and it's have that phenomena has happened a couple of times where as a faculty member, I've been approached by people in industry um, asking me to apply to something where it's very clear that I'm being invited and it's nearly certain that I will get it, because you know it may superficially be an open program. Actually, in that case, it's not clear to me whether that one thing that I applied for was an open program, but it's very clear that I was invited and there was near 100% chance that I would get the thing that I was being invited for. Um, and that's a clear instance of privilege. The fact that the other side already knew about my work, um, is perhaps a consequence of the work that I have put in. But in this particular instance, I guess it was easy. Like somebody else may actually be applying to that program, but they're, like it was easier for me, and that is an instance of privilege. And I recall being on the other side, where you can apply all you want to certain programs and you're just not even eligible.
Yeah. And so these programs are in the context of something like funding for the academic research lab or
Yeah, that's right.
What are you insecure about?
I think I'm an academic, and a researcher, and I place a lot of my self-worth on the work that I've produced. Um, yeah, I know all the self-help books tell you not to do that. Can't help it. That's just what I've done my entire life. Like I, yeah. So my insecurities therefore then are tied into value of self-worth based on value of the work that I put in. So the insecurity is like the work is worthless, uh, and therefore so am I.
Do you feel like an imposter?
No, generally I don't suffer from an imposter syndrome. I suffer from the opposite problem.
What is something you're trying out these days, and how is that going?
Well, trying out, I was trying to learn a couple of movements. These are gymnastic style movements and Olympic weightlifting style movements, and in the CrossFit gym that I go to. But right now, I seem to have pulled something in my lower back, and I am essentially out of commission. Yeah.
What is your favorite tool or trick or hack that makes your life more convenient or efficient or fun?
Okay. My favorite hack is that if I can somehow, if I want something done, if I can somehow get that landed on your to-do list, then I'm pretty certain it'll get done. So that's my hack. Somehow convince Devi that it is in your or our benefit for that to happen, and have it be landed on your to-do list.
How often does that work? That was not on
If
my list of questions, but how often does that work?
Well, I mean, which part? If it lands on your to-do list, it'll work out 100% fine, nearly 100% fine.
You have
How
no,
often
yeah.
how often can I land things on your to-do list? I don't know, surprisingly often.
All right. What is something surprising about you? Something that the rest of us might not guess.
Uh, in my undergraduate days, I was the lead singer of a rock band. We were not very talented, and thankfully, this was in the pre-Facebook era, so pictures are not floating around on the internet. Um, but yeah, I was the I was the front man of a cover band.
With the long hair and the torn jeans and the whole package.
Yeah. Not very proud. Well, I mean, it was undergrad. What are you gonna do? But yeah.
Um, what do you tend to think about most when you're not intentionally trying to think about something?
I tend to think about people. Um, I tend to replay conversations in my head. I tend to, I think in terms of trajectories, mine or other people's. Um, yeah. So
Yeah.
people and incidents and conversations and trajectories and
What is one thing about the world that surprises you?
it surprises me how many people care about um, about parochial interests. Um, I guess intellectually, I understand why that shouldn't be surprising. But just the idea that somehow your city or your part of the town or your school or your college is exceptional just surprises me. Like I'm surprised by people who get into arguments or fights or like about what to me is trivial things, like who happened to win a college game from a college that you went 20 years ago. Yeah.
Mm. What is the most recent unexpected thing that happened?
I mean, a few months ago, everything shut down. That was pretty unexpected. Uh, but more personal, yeah, nothing else has been too terribly unexpected in the personal or the professional front for me personally.
What is one way in which you wish your life was different?
I don't know if I can concretely say what the difference would be, but I wish, like, I wish I had, uh, like, I wish when I was in college or in school, there's a bit more exposure to things. Like, I feel like I was kind of lost and nobody was around who could answer basic questions like, what are we doing here? Like, why is college set up this way, not that way? What are plausible career trajectories? Like, where do people go? Why do people do things the way they do? Like, what is research? What is, like, the kinds of like Paul Graham essays. Like, I wish they were around when we were in, I mean, I'm sure they were. It's just like nobody pointed that out. Yeah. So, yeah, like if I had to point out like what way life was different, I wish like someone had like sat me down and pointed me to like just read, Paul Graham essays. Um, yeah,
Yeah. To get a head start on the building world models side of things. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, what are you looking forward to tomorrow or next week?
So this weekend is lab retreat. So I'm looking forward to the answer. So lab retreat. So uh, you and I run our lab together.
At Georgia
We
Tech?
at Georgia Tech, we put together an annual event, which is the lab retreat. Typically, we would go somewhere. We've been, to somewhere locally, somewhere around a conference. We would hire out a place, have a conference room there. This event is based around questions. So there are certain questions that we ask everybody in the group to answer. They are around predictions about the future. So we ask people to make predictions about 1 to 5 and 10 years ahead. And there are some other questions like the ones that you're doing right now that everybody in the lab answers. And so I'm looking forward to, that's this weekend. So I'm looking forward to answers to those questions.
Yeah. Um, so just so you know, we are over halfway through, but there's still several more questions. Do you think you're average, above average, or below average happy relative to people around you?
I think it depends on the peer set. And so if I just define it as, people with at similar points of the career or similar backgrounds, like people who I might bump into at work, other faculty, at various points in their career, I'd say maybe I am slightly below average happy, and that's probably by design because I focus on things that are wrong rather than things that are right. But I don't have any, I'm fortunate and privileged not to have any major problems in life. And so there's nothing that's, causing recurring pain or heartache. And I know people deal with issues that are far more serious than that. So I can't put myself too far low in that ordering. Yeah.
When was the last time you danced?
A week and a half ago, no, last weekend, uh, my lower back was feeling particularly good, and every step had a spring in it. Uh, it is not feeling good again, and so I can probably tell you when I will dance again when my lower back feels good.
Oh. Um, what was your most recent dream that you remember?
I don't know. Don't think I can point to any recent dream. Yeah, I think I have an answer there.
Hmm. Are you more optimistic than people around you or more pessimistic?
Generally more optimistic. Um, I generally believe things can work out. Generally believe I place, well, okay, fine. Maybe there's some nuance acquired there. I am generally optimistic about, I'm generally optimistic about my abilities to get things done. I am generally pessimistic about the world. Meaning that I am likely to ascribe, you know, I'm likely to predict that bad things will happen in the future. But I am likely to predict that if I have control, I will be able to do, I'll be able to do good things. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Do you think there is a point to life or our existence?
Now, to like as much as we can tell, there is no point, or at least nobody knows it, or anybody who claims to know it is lying or delusional. Um, yeah, there's no point. Everything that we see around us, just specks on a speck on a speck on a speck, in floating in the middle of nowhere. Um, we have no idea what the point is or the purpose is. Yeah.
What do you struggle with in life?
I mean, on a low level things, on day-to-day things, I struggle with just trying to make sure I stay on top of things, trying to make sure my to-dos are done. At a existential level, I struggle with what are we doing? Like I wouldn't say I struggle with it on a daily basis. I have like no problems. I think so. Maybe this is a good point to recite a thing that I say. So when I was in grad school, I took a semester-long class on advanced combinatorics, and this was a 7,000 level math class in the math department, and it was on what is known as Ramsey theory, which is you prove the existence of certain combinatorial objects in random distributions over other combinatorial objects. And the specific instantiation of that was you take a fully connected undirected graph, you vertex color, so you color every vertex with k colors, or 2 for simplicity, and then you ask the question, if I randomly color these vertices with probability 1/2 or some probability p, what is the probability that there exists a fully connected subgraph of same color, that all the vertices are same color? And you write down parameters. My original graph was with n vertices. The coloring probability is p. There's a k element subset that I'm looking for that is fully connected, and you derive out an expression that says, if n is large enough, here's the how large k can be, and with p you get an expression that it exists. That if you construct a large enough graph to start off with, and you randomly color it, somewhere within it is a subgraph that is the same color. And you can generalize this to other combinatorial objects, perfect matchings embedded inside random connections in an edge, in a graph. And after proving this theorem, I still remember the instructor of that class turned towards us and said, the reason why this theorem is more than just a theorem and that it's cool is because what this theorem really says is that even within perfect disorder, perfect chaos, somewhere in there is a pocket of perfect order. And to me, like, that's what life is. There is no meaning, there is no purpose. The universe is chaotic, it's completely random, but somewhere within it is a pocket of perfect order. And that's the meaning we make for ourselves. We make meaning out of sheer meaninglessness. The place where I struggle is, where do you stop? Where do you stop creating meaning and say, there is nothing else to create here? You're done. Um, yeah, so that's where I struggle. Where is the decision boundary where you hit? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh. um, how do you decide what to work on?
I look for certain features. Is Is it a problem that um, has any interesting scope for impact? Because that is important to me. Um, are there other smart people already working in this space or are willing to head into this space with me? Um, is will I learn something, or is it something that I've done for a few years and therefore I kind of understand and I'm kind of bored, and maybe all that is left are the millennium problems, and there's like it's just a barren landscape with just really hard sheer vertical cliffs, um, and in some sense, ultimately, is this going to be fun? Is this going to be a fun journey with smart people taking on ambitious problems with some reasonable probability of success?
Mm. What are two common traits in some of the best collaborators or colleagues you've worked with? And are you good at spotting these early?
What are two common traits in collaborators that I enjoy working with?
Yeah, what are two traits common across some of the best collaborators you've had?
Um, trait number, like one trait that I particularly value is clarity of thought and expression. Like some of the best collaborators I've had have an ability to answer basic questions like, what are we doing here? Why are we doing this, why not that? Both to know it and to answer it, and to express that. And I have certain features with which you can spot such clarity. Of course, over a prolonged dialogue, you'll be able to ask them questions and they'll be able to answer things. Um, but I find that people who pause and listen and take their time before they actually respond to a question, that tends to be a very quick indicator to know um, that they're going to uh, that they're going to possess this quality. Um, the second, oh, I have very high respect for people who have just high bandwidth. It's very rare, and when you do, like, I want to hold on to such collaborators for dear life. Like people who can just, there are people who can just get things done, and they do not stop. They have a certain hunger in their belly where you know, they will not rest till what's on their plate just gets done, and uh, yeah, you can spot that very easily. You can spot. It's almost like playing tennis with someone who's playing with multiple rackets. Things are coming back at you faster than you can lob them over the net.
Hmm. Oceans or hills?
Hills looking at oceans.
What is something that you love doing that you're terrible at?
Certain kinds of exercise, I like doing them, but I suck at them. Like I just don't have the body composition or the ability or the strength or the ratios to be able to pull off certain kinds of exercises.
Hmm. What is something you did recently that surprised some people who believe they know you well?
Oh yeah. After COVID, work from home started, my sleeping schedule was thrown out of whack. I was staying up till like 2 a.m., waking up at like 9 a.m., 10 a.m. Like, yeah, like you and the others who you've complained to have were very surprised that I could, stay up and actually function past 10 p.m.
Yeah. When was the last time you felt like a kid in a candy store?
I don't know. I don't care about actual candy that much. Uh, Maybe the last time I was looking for tablets to buy, like I was looking for what else to buy, and then I'll
Mm,
search for whatever's out there and like do my research, and it
mm,
can be an interesting experiment looking for the best toy.
mm. What do you easily get nostalgic about?
Grad school, undergrad,
Mm,
for different reasons with different emotions attached to them.
mm. What is something you did not like at the time, but you are glad happened?
Your hypothesis is that uh, so I did not like my undergrad experience at all, but your hypothesis is that I may have benefited from that experience because I came out pretty hungry and determined and motivated into grad school, um, and I am okay going with your hypothesis. Like,
Um, um, Describe something that made you smile today.
just the idea of this interview, it's you're literally outside the door. You're like, so this is weird.
Um, what is some of the best advice you've gotten or given?
Oh, this isn't fair. This is one of the questions in the lab retreat. So as long as you promise not to share this with the students before the lab retreat.
Yeah.
Sure. I think one piece of advice that has stuck with me is from Randy Posh, um, from his last lecture at CMU, where he talked about if the world is not saying no to you constantly, I don't think he said constantly there, but I added that constantly. If the world is not saying no to you constantly, then you're not asking for enough. That
Mm,
advice has stuck with me. There is a corollary of that advice, which I'm going to share with my students this weekend, which is the corollary of that is if you do ask for enough, then the world will constantly be saying no to you. Be careful if that's what you want. Um, you may gain the satisfaction of knowing that you did not leave anything on the table, but it's going to be just a string of no's. Uh, so just be prepared and make sure you are making that trade off, knowing that that's what you want.
yeah. Um, Being as honest as possible, why did you agree to do this interview with me?
Because I'm a supportive spouse. Come on, like, uh, I don't know. It's an experiment. It's an experiment, and I like experiments. Um, be stagnant is to die. And if you're not trying different things, then what else is there?
Oh. So the last question, is there anything you'd like to talk about in terms of who you are, what your life is like that we haven't covered?
I mean, I guess a large part or an influencer on my life is you. Uh, so at some point we have to switch these roles, and then the answers that come out will also be an indicator or a fuller picture on my life.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Um, so that's all. That's everything I had. I really enjoyed this conversation, even more so than I thought, because I knew it would be weird that I'm sending you to this other room and we're having the conversation on Zoom when we could just be talking in person. But I really enjoyed this, and I think people listening to this will get a lot out of it as well. So thank you for doing that.
I hope so. Thank you. This was fun.
All right. See you.
See you in 1 minute.
Yeah. Yeah.